Hi, my name is Tony, and I am doing my Minor Prophets video on Hosea, and specifically Hosea chapters 11 through 14. And so, yeah, Hosea, the book of Hosea was written by Hosea, son of Beeri. Uh, he was an Israelite from northern Israel, from Ephraim. His intended audience was Israel, specifically Ephraim. Northern Israel is what he referred to a lot. It was written between 785 BC and 745 BC. The time that this was written was towards the end of the kingdom, the northern kingdom of Israel, which was Ephraim. So this would have been written towards the end of that time in the last few years. It was written in northern Israel, in the northern kingdom of Israel and Ephraim. The purpose of it was to show God's love, to tell Israel about the Lord's indictment and the coming judgment, and to plead to Israel for them to return to the Lord. And it showed that the Lord made a way for them to be redeemed. Uh, many and the historical context behind these few chapters is there have been many different kings in Ephraim. The scholars say that the one that was believed to be the king at the time was uh, Hosea, because he was the last king. Uh, there was the Assyrian expansion, so the nation of Assyria was expanding. Israel had been creating alliances with Assyria and Egypt on and off instead of relying on God, and there was a lot of idolatry, worshiping, and such. So two key passages would be Hosea 11, 8 through 9, and it says, "How can I give you up, O Ephraim? How can I hand you over, O Israel? How can I make you like Admah? How can I treat you like Zeboim? My heart recoils within me. My compassion grows warm and tender. I will not execute my burning anger. I will not destroy Ephraim, for I am God and not a man, the Holy One in your midst, and I will not come in wrath." And then another one is uh, in Hosea, in Hosea 14, 1 through 6, and it says, "Return, O Israel, to the Lord your God, for you have stumbled because of your iniquity. Take with you your words and return to the Lord, and say to him, take away all of my iniquity, accept what is good, and we will pay the bulls the vows of our lips. Assyria shall not save us, we will not ride on horses, we will say no more, our God, to the work of our hands. If in you the orphan finds mercy, I will hear their apostasy, I will love them freely, for my anger has turned from them. I will be like the dew to Israel. He shall blossom like the lily. He shall take root like the trees of Lebanon. His shoot will spread out. His beauty shall be like the olive, and his fragrance like Lebanon. And so that what those two verses show is how God's love, despite Israel's idolatry worshiping and them living in so much sin constantly, and them constantly turning away from God, he described to them in chapters 12 and 13 about his indictment towards them and his coming judgment if they did not turn. He used Hosea to speak that to Israel and to Ephraim. But in chapter 11, it's almost like a love poem to Israel and to God's people. And and then so it's showing God's love, and then at the end, in chapter 14, it's like the climax of it, because it's God's final decision. It's God's final call of what He decides to do with Ephraim and with Israel, and what He decides to do is he decides to show them love. And one thing that stood out to me is when it said, "His beauty shall be like the olive." So olives, in that time, represented God's abundant favor. And so, despite Israel being sinful, despite them going against God and worshiping other idols and going against His laws and His commandments, uh, God tells them of His coming judgment and His indictment. But in the end, He still chooses to redeem Israel, and He still chooses, despite their sin, to show them mercy and to show them love and to show them because He has abundant favor over them, right? And some major themes is God's anger and hatred for sin is so strong. We talked about it for two whole chapters. God's anger and distaste and with Israel at the time, and it can't God can't be anywhere where sin is. And so when God's nation is imperfect, he handed them over to the sin. He let them, because God is judge and God is just, and He's the final judge. And so He punishes us not by doing things to us, by handing us over to the things that we are following. He instead of causing us pain, He just gives us over to whatever we're pursuing. And He lets our own sinful actions affect us. But also, another theme is that God's love is greater than anything. So Paul says in Romans that wherever sin is, His love abounds with greater. And it showed in these passages, in these chapters, when Israel's being as bad as they could possibly be, God's love was still abundantly greater than their sin. And even though we forsake God every day, He still wants to redeem us, and He still redeems us, and He shows us His abundant mercy and His abundant favor because He loves us so much. It's because God hands us over to our sin out of love so that we can turn back to Him. And He also redeems us and He shows us mercy because of His love and because He wants the very best for us. And so, one theological significance of this is it shows God's emotions in these chapters. It shows God's anger in that it shows how we are created in His image because He put in us the same emotions that He feels. And in these chapters, He's sharing His emotions with Hosea, and He's communicating them to His people, telling them how He feels, and urging them to come back to Him. His righteous anger and His intent, but also like His intense love for His people, is what is described in these chapters. And despite His anger, His intense love restores us to Him. He restores His people to Him. And it also shows that humans, no matter how patient God is with us, we always end up choosing to turn away from Him. And we always end up sinning against Him and giving into our flesh. And we disobey God's laws and His commandments because we're imperfect. But even in God's anger and in His judgment, He gives us grace. He gives us so much more than we could ever deserve. And we've broken our covenant with God so many times, but yet, even though we're the ones that break the covenant, He's the one that still took the punishment for our penalty when He sent Jesus to die on the cross. And so, from practical application, for me personally, reading these passages, it made me feel so much weight. And just hearing God talk about how it made Him feel, and it giving insight into God's emotions, it pressed on me so much the weight of that. And it shows the character of God, that not only is He just in everything He does, But it's all in everything he does, it's out of love for us. When he's giving us over to our sins, so that it's out of love, so that we can see that how it affects us, and that we can come back to him and decide to follow him again. And I think it's a message that in ministry we need to preach, that God, where sin is, God's love abounds all the greater. And that when He gives us over to our sins, it's still out of love, and and that it's supposed to draw us right back to Him. And so a reflection, it shows obedience and faithfulness to God is so important. How God um, will let us get ourselves caught up in our sin, but He also makes a way for us to be restored back to Him.